Hi and welcome to this video from the Year 2 section of Algebra and Functions. Now most of your algebraic manipulations, the basic skills, were covered in Year 1, but there's a couple of things that we need to go through ready for the Year 2 course. The first one is something you should be familiar with. The second one is going to be new, so let's just have a quick look. And so what we've got is basically playing around with algebraic fractions. So we're talking about cancelling, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Again, those are essentially GCSE skills, but we just need to recover them. And then it's this stuff about partial fractions that we're going to need for our Year 2 work. So we'll deal with the algebraic fractions and the basics in this video, and then we'll have a look at the partial fractions in the next one. So here we go. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because, as I said, it is essentially just a recap of stuff you will have seen before that hopefully you can remember from GCSE. So here we go. So we're going to do a bit of simplifying first of all, and in order to do the simplifying, simply what we're looking for is some common factors. So let's factorise the top, factorise the bottom. Hopefully on the bottom here you'll notice take out an x there. That will leave us x squared minus 4, and hopefully you'll recognise that as difference of two squares. So there's our factorising on the top, and there's our factorising on the bottom. And if you want to just take a moment just to check that you're happy that that is a fully factorised version of that, then please do. And then once we've done the factorising, simply all we've got to do is look for common factors top and bottom and do the cancelling. So there we go, the x minus 2's cancel, and we're left with 3 over x bracket x plus 2. Remember as well that if you're going to do any cancelling or simplifying, you've got to have things written in terms of factors. You can't just start slicing x's or x squareds off tops and bottoms. There's no way I'm going to start thinking I can just take an x off there and chop a similar one off there. Hopefully you're all happy with that. If you're not, then you really need to go back and do a lot of GCSE style work. Right, moving on. Let's have a look at the next one. So this one, again, it's two quadratics. A little bit more awkward, so let's have a look at what we're going to do. And if it was me doing this, I'd probably have a little pop at the bottom one first, because that seems a bit simpler to get at. So if we do the factorising there, we've got 2x minus 3, x plus 7. And what I'm now going to do is have a look at factorising the top. Now there's kind of two shortcuts or little cheats we could do to get into this one, because it doesn't look particularly nicely. The first one I'm going to go for is to have a little go at putting in the calculator. So what I'm going to do is assume that this thing here is 10x squared minus 23x plus 12 equal to 0, and I'm going to put that into the quadratic equation solver on my calculator. And what you'll get from your calculator is your two solutions, which is that and that. Now, what I'm now going to do is use these two solutions that I've got off my calculator just to do to kind of recreate the factors. So on this side here, I'm going to go 5x equals 4, just multiply the 5 out, move the 4 over, and there we go. I knew there's my new factor that I know will give me the solution x is 4 over 5. And on this side we've got 2x equals 3, 2x minus 3 equals 0, and there it is again there. So by just using the equation solver on your calculator, what you've got is a slightly simpler, as a shortcut or a bit of a hint as to how you can do the factorising. Alternatively, you can have a little look at the factors on the bottom. So, well, if I know something's going to cancel out, and look at these two factors, which of these two factors is more likely to be a factor of this one? Well, it's no way it's going to be x plus 7, because clearly that's not going to be a factor. 7 is not a factor of 12, whereas this one is going to work. So if I just put that in to begin with, so I've got that, and now it's just a case of working out what value of x and what number I'm going to put in there. So clearly that one there has got to be minus 4 to be able to create the plus 12, and to get the 10x squared, that's going to have to be 5. So it's got to be that. So whichever way you do it, if you are faced with one of these things, there's a couple of shortcuts that can help you get to where you need to go. Once we've done all that, the last step is obviously just do the simplifying, and there we go. There's our equation cancelled into its simplest form. Right, on we go. So that was the cancelling bit. Multiplying and dividing is basically just exactly the same as what we had before. So let's have a look at those two examples. And again, first I'm going to do is some factorising on top and bottom wherever we can. So for this one here, 4x squared minus 9, there's difference of two squares. This one over here, that's 2x minus 1, x plus 1. And so now we can see where some cancelling is going to happen. The 2x minus 1s are going to go, and the 2x minus 3s are going to go. And so what we've got is left on the top here, this is just going to be 1. And on the bottom, we've got 2x plus 3, x plus 1. In part B, we're dividing fractions. So if you remember back to your division of fractions from when you were kind of year 7, it was just a case of KFC. Keep the first fraction, but what we can do is factorise it. So there it is. There's the factorised version of the first one. Flip the second one, and again I'm going to factorise that and flip it. So there it is, factorised, so you can know it's the x squared plus 5x. That's that bit there, but factorised, x squared minus x minus 2. There it is, it's now on the bottom, flipped upside down and factorised. And then the c is to change the sign. And so now we've just got to do our cancelling. So the x minus 2s are going to go, the x plus 5s are going to go. And so what we're left with is x squared y. So that's xy times by x times by 2. We've got x plus 1 times x plus 1. Hence the x plus 1 all squared. Right, on we go. Addition and subtraction. Basic principles. In order to add or subtract two fractions, you've got to have the denominator the same. So again, factorise is going to help us with this. It's going to help simplify this here, because if we want to get the same denominator from this, and we just go at it by doing that one times by that one, we're going to end up with a quartic, a part 4 equation, which is more complicated than we need. So let's do some factorising first of all and see if there's any shortcuts we can get at. So factorise the bottoms. We've got x squared plus 2x, that just becomes x plus 2, and factorise the 3x squared plus 8x plus 4 using either method discussed in the previous slide, and we get that, and straight away you can see you've got a common factor there, which is going to make our life a bit simpler. So our new common denominator has got to have all the elements of these bits here. We've got 3 elements. We've got the x, we've got the x plus 2, we've got the 3x plus 2. So what we can do is make our new common denominator simply x plus 2, 3x plus 2. If you imagine that's the equivalent of having maybe 6 and 8ths, and rather than saying, well, I'm going to make my new common denominator just what I get by multiplying, which would be 48, well, 6 and 8ths, I can actually use 24ths, because there's a common factor within 6 and 8. It just keeps the algebra a little bit simpler. So, in order to get this fraction here to have x plus 2, 3x plus 2 on the bottom, we've just got to times top and bottom by that bit there, 3x plus 2. So, that's our first fraction. And to do a similar job on this one, to end up with our new common denominator, which has got the 3 bits, the bit that's missing is the x. So I just need to times top and bottom by x. So we end up with that. And again, we've got to be very, very careful here, because we've got a minus sign in there. So thinking very carefully about what impact that's going to have. And that is the reason that I've kept this bit here. I've multiplied it out, but I've kept it inside brackets to make sure I deal with the minus correctly, because we're going to be taking away all of this. I don't really need the brackets on the first bit, because the brackets are going to have no impact there, but they're definitely required here. So how you choose to deal with that negative is entirely up to you. And you'll see in the next slide I'm going to deal with it in a slightly different way. But just whatever you do, for goodness sake, make sure that you're aware of that minus, because it's what you don't want is a very simple sign area to effectively screw over everything else that you do from there on in later in the question, because these kind of things would be kind of a start in the question before you get onto the really kind of heavy duty work that will come later on. Having said all of that, let's just now do the subtractions. I've got 6 take away, I've got 9x take away x, and I've got a minus x squared. So it ends up looking like that. And on we go to the next slide. So we've got part B, which is a horrible looking fraction, and we've got a kind of whole number that we've got to deal with as well there. But I think the first thing we'll do is have a look, can we do some factorising there to make this second fraction a bit simpler? And clearly we can. There it is, factorised, and clearly the x minus p's are going to cancel out, and so we've got something that's looking a little bit more simple. Now we've got to deal with the whole number element of it, and the way to go about that is to treat that 2 as if it was just a fraction. So what I'm going to do is say, well, I need to have the same denominator, so I need this thing to have x minus 2p as being its denominator. So what I'm going to do is multiply top and bottom by x minus 2p. So the 2, when we write it as a fraction, is going to look like that, and then we've got our second fraction there, and again we've got some issues with the minus sign. You can see again I've dealt with it slightly differently. I've dealt with the minuses all in one hit. So I've got minus the x and minus the 5p is the plus 5p. So I've dealt with the minus there. And so now all we've got to do is tidy up what's on the top. So I've got 2x minus x, and I've got minus 4p plus 5p. So that horrible looking thing just all simplifies to become that. And there we go. So there's your adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, cancelling, all of it kind of done. And hopefully that's a decent recap of all the skills that you had from GCSE.